Hi, my name is Jen Messina. I'm a clinical psychologist, and as we all manage through this time of uncertainty, I thought it might be helpful to talk a little bit about some ways to manage anxiety. The first thing to keep in mind if you are somebody who's experiencing heightened anxiety right now is that that's actually pretty adaptive and normal. Anxiety is our body's way of coping with uncertainty, and there's obviously a great deal of uncertainty right now. So I think that it can just be helpful to recognize that if you are feeling some anxiety, that's normal. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, and it certainly doesn't mean you're always going to feel that way. The second thing that I'd encourage you to keep in mind is really trying to understand the difference between productive worry and rumination. So when you have a situation like this that is evolving in real time, lots of implications for our daily lives, it is really actually helpful to be thinking through, okay, how do I want to manage this? What plans do I need to make? And if you're thinking through the situation sort of the first time through and planning for different scenarios, that's really adaptive. However, as soon as you start going over that path the second time, that is when we start getting into rumination. And rumination basically is an unhelpful worry cycle where we are thinking repetitively about the same thing and usually making ourselves feel more, not less anxious. So if you are finding yourself ruminating, again, worrying about the same things with increased intensity, I encourage you to practice some strategies to just sort of stop it in its tracks. So one thing to do is to have a reassuring mantra, something that you know is true, that you can trust, and it's something as simple as taking a deep breath, saying, I'm okay, I won't always feel this way. Maybe you have really thought things through and have a great plan, so your mantra could be, I've thought this through and I have a really good plan. It's going to be okay. Another thing I think that can be very helpful is something I call practicing presenting. And it basically just means not trying to carve out and deconstruct all possible scenarios, but really just taking what you have in front of you right now. So what do I need to do today? What are the known variables and known considerations today? And how can I practice as much mindfulness as possible to stay right here and right now? You're going to need those resources down the road if more stressful things happen. And if they don't, that would have been wasted energy that you could have spent anchoring in more positively. The third thing that I wanted to mention is that there are ways during times of uncertainty to exert healthy control that can really help you to feel less overwhelmed. One of the first, and I think most important, is really setting some structure for yourself in terms of a daily schedule. The things you want to keep in mind, first of all, there are a ton of wellness activities that will help you manage if you are currently anxious, but can also prevent anxiety and depression. Things like daily exercise, and again, that can be starting wherever you are, but can really go a long way. Things like being intentional about your nutrition, being really dedicated to keeping a good sleep schedule, and maintaining as much positive connection as you can. I would strongly encourage you to schedule with the folks who you love ways to stay connected. You can FaceTime. My dad and I like to do crossword puzzles together. My daughter is starting a book club with her grandmother and her siblings. What is something that you all can do together that makes you feel connected, shared experience, but also gives you some positive ways to be communicating and connecting? Another thing that you can do that is an example of healthy control is actually doing some intentional work around reframing. There's a lot of really good data that the way that people talk to themselves determines a lot about how they feel. And if you're able to frame some pieces of this through the lens of opportunity, if you happen to be quarantined with folks who you are in your family, the fact that you're with them and they exist and you wouldn't otherwise get to be with them can be a really nice focal point. If you miss your family, there can be some reframing in how beautiful it is to have people that you care about and miss. So there can be some subtle ways that you're intentional about how you talk to yourself that can just really help how you feel. Another thing I would mention in terms of how you manage your schedule, and again exerting some healthy control, is if you identify one positive thing that you're going to do, and you'll do it every day no matter what. It doesn't need to be a big deal. It actually can be quite simple. It can be, I'm going to take 10 minutes watching funny videos, or I'm going to do, again for me it's a crossword puzzle, or take a walk around the block. And when you wake up in the morning, you set the intention, I'm going to do this today, and then no matter what, you know you're going to have this thing that you enjoy while you're doing. There's very good data actually that can help a lot with mood and with stress. The fourth and last thing I wanted to mention is, as you'll recall from the beginning, we talked about anxiety is adaptive. It is your body's and mind's response to great uncertainty. And so what you want to do is be really intentional about how to help to soothe that. And you can do that actually physiologically. So it is impossible to be anxious and relaxed at the same time. And by building in a practice of things like intentional relaxation, things like if you are a meditator, being really disciplined about doing it every day. If you haven't been a meditator but want to try, if you want to think about the more moments in time when you're relaxed, those are going to actually lower your baseline of anxiety, and it's also going to help you be more resilient whenever your anxiety does spike up.